I'm home. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and I just got back from the longest trip of my life. I've been on planes, I went to Washington, and I met so many of you amazing subscribers on my journey. But now, I'm finally back home, and to be completely honest, I'm dead tired. I haven't even unpacked. But before I actually get a chance to relax and decompress, I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch. So, something really interesting happened during this trip, which is this was my first time really traveling with the Switch. And I have to say, it really helped the journey be a lot more fun. Because let's face it, the hardest part of travel is sitting on airplanes, is waiting for that next big chance to try and get up and go somewhere. You have to sit around and you have to wait. And it wasn't so bad because I had a ton of games on this. I have a huge memory card on my Nintendo Switch, so today I kind of just want to talk about what I play to get through all the boring times. This is a fantastic handheld, so let's, just for fun, talk about what I've got on my Nintendo Switch. So I figure what we do here is kind of just go through everything that I currently have installed and talk about the stuff that I think is the best of the best. Starting with Yooka-Laylee, a game that just really surprised me. When it originally came out, I wasn't the biggest fan of it because I felt like it had a lot of tiny glitches and stuff that really kind of turned me off. Recently, though, it's really kind of become one of my favorite Switch platformers. I think it's really good as a Switch game because the portability aspect makes it where I can purposely try some of the most difficult stuff in the game over and over again. Whether it be like a puzzle or a big boss, I can just keep trying over and over again and not worry about getting stuck, because when it's a handheld, I can just pause it at any time. That's sort of the same reason I love Splatoon 2 so much, is because it's literally a multiplayer game that's made for being on the go, in my opinion. The tinier screen and the action that doesn't require a map. I play this a lot. It's probably one of my favorite portable shooters right now, and what I ended up doing is, on the plane, they ended up having Wi-Fi, so you could connect to the Wi-Fi through that, and so I was literally, while in the air, 40,000 feet in the sky, I was splatting people with almost no delay, because this game runs really efficiently, and I feel like it's one of the best examples of how the online works with the Nintendo Switch. Next up is the Octopath Traveler demo. I'm not going to bother showing you anything about that because I've done a whole video about it, and honestly, I still think it's one of my favorite demos ever, even if I haven't really replayed it since that initial time. I still keep it installed just because I'm so excited for the main game. Now, moving on to Snipper Clips, this is a game I've played some, but I haven't beaten it yet. To be perfectly honest, the reason I keep it installed is because I'm trying to beat it with my girlfriend. I just figured that we'd go through it, and since the game is such a goofy little puzzle experience, it's one of those things that is so much fun with a friend. It's one of those games that it's a unique thing that almost makes you form your own stories just by playing it. Sort of like Time Recoil. This is like a twin-stick shooter, but with the added element of a sort of time mechanic, which is where, as you kill people, everything slows down. Every time you get a nice little headshot or something, the entire room will slowly go to a stop until literally time freezes. It's a sort of game that feels like Hotline Miami, but with more time travel-y type stuff, and it's really fun. I definitely think that I like it the most on Switch, but at this point it's on everything. Golf Story, though, is something that only exists on the Switch, and straight up, this is still one of my favorite Nintendo Switch games. I believe it's on sale right now, and absolutely everybody should buy it. I have played this so much, and it's still one of those games where if I feel like I'm going over to a friend's house and they've never seen the Nintendo Switch, this is a game I like to show them because you can't get it anywhere else. It's a really unique RPG that's so goofy and has you killing zombies, bashing alligators, and everything else in between. Here we have the first of the games that, in my opinion, is really weird, and that's Stick Bold, a dodgeball adventure. This game is trying just to be silly, and I'm not sure how serious it wants to be taken. I like it, but it's not super deep. It's one of those things where my roommate and I will a lot of times just randomly sit down with a random game just to see if it's fun or not, and we really, really enjoyed this for about an afternoon. I still keep it installed though because I think it's one of those games it's so goofy that I'll be honest, if I'm with some friends and they're having some drinks, this is a funny game to kind of put up on the screen and be like, hey, look at these rectangular people hitting each other with dodgeballs. However, if we're wanting to be a little bit more hardcore, instead of doing dodgeball, let's dodge some demons. Doom is seriously one of the best games on this entire console. True, it exists elsewhere, but I still feel like it's the most refined on Switch. Graphically, it's not the best, but the fact that I can play online and get all sorts of frags is so sweet. Specifically, I keep going back to this version because I like the arcade mode. I feel like being able to do missions that are like 15 minutes long while in portable mode is really, really, really fun. And it kind of makes it where the fact that I can just skip to any chapter at any time makes it feel like a much lower stakes version of first-person shooters. It makes it where I can have fun, get challenged, and really do some craziness, but not have to worry about a 10-hour long campaign. It's really just kind of a game where it's as big and serious as you want to put into it. Sort of like Judge. Now, I never know how to pronounce this game, but dang do I love it. This is another twin-stick shooter, and by the same people who actually made Time Recoil, but this one is much more focused on co-op. And it can actually be played... this is one of those games that actually requires both people to have a full controller. You can't do this with a single Joy-Con. Judge requires that you and your teammate also talk to each other a lot. You play as these cops in the distant future when suddenly crime goes crazy. So in order to actually win each of the different missions, you need to talk to your partner to coordinate different buffs, special abilities, and try and actually take down each of your targets. It's really, really fun with a friend, and it's one of those games that I think a lot of people reviewed it badly just because they weren't great at it. The more you actually practice Judge, the more fun it is, which is why I've never uninstalled it. Moving on to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this is one I'm never ever going to uninstall, and I feel like it's because Mario Kart is one of those games that you never have to explain to anybody. At this point, everybody on the planet has played some Mario Kart, which means that you can hand the controller to pretty much anybody, and they're going to immediately start drifting and shooting shells and having fun. Just this weekend, I actually made a really great friend because we were walking around at one point at this big convention, and somebody had Mario Kart on their Switch, and they were playing it in the corner of this big bustling room. So I was curious. I walked up and said, hey man, can we do some laps? He gave me a controller, and I ended up just barely losing to him in the final lap of a race. And it was that kind of fun bonding moment of being like, without even talking to this guy, without even having like a big, huge, long discussion, I immediately knew more about it because of just how freaking great Mario Kart is. On the topic of Mario, let's move on to Super Mario Odyssey. What do I really need to say about this? When I reviewed it, I gave it a perfect score because it is just such a blast. This, in my opinion, is still the pinnacle of probably the entire Mario franchise, which is saying something because there's like 80 billion Mario games. This game is so big and so goofy and so great. Finding different moons and progressing to different kingdoms is such a great system, and I feel like it makes it where I keep wanting to just try and find new little secrets. I honestly felt like while I was playing this game, I might stumble upon something that nobody else has ever discovered. There is a layer of depth to this that I genuinely think that if you play this long enough, you will see stuff that nobody else in the world will ever see. And it's so invigorating. Now, moving on to something that's just a little bit more disturbing and weird, let's talk about Black the Fall. This feels sort of like a 2D Mario game because you only run right to left, but it's much more focused on puzzles. You're trying to basically solve different puzzles, climb up on ledges, and trying to get out of this big giant factory. It's interesting, and I'm glad I've beaten it, but I'm not sure if it's really a good game. It's one of those things that the more time I put into it, the more I'm kind of like, okay, I get it, but it's been done better in other places. That's unfortunately how I feel about these next two games, so we're just going to kind of rush past them, and that's Vaccine and Rogue Trooper Redux. Now, I know I just mispronounced Rogue Trooper, but both of these games are just, there's something like they have a great plan, but they don't know how to follow through on it. Vaccine was sort of like a Resident Evil 1 remake with randomized options, and Rogue Trooper is just kind of a generic third-person shooter. Both of these, though, are still something that I kind of like to mess around with. Sort of like Nine Parchments. Here we have a big dungeon crawling adventure that's really silly. I like it because it almost feels like Harry Potter got turned into something like Baldur's Gate. Nine Parchments, though, is something that you definitely need a friend to enjoy. Playing it by yourself doesn't really give you much. Unlike Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is a single-player experience that is 100 hours long of absolutely awesome epicness. Seriously, unlocking new blades, getting new skills, and mastering the combat system is such a rush. I've put so much time into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and loved every moment of it. This is one of those games that I feel like if you like role-playing games, this is not only a must-buy, this should be a first-buy. This should be the first Nintendo Switch game you get if you are super hardcore into turn-based RPGs like I am. Now, this is much more of an action RPG because of how you can run around during battles, but it still feels like it keeps that little gem of unique flair that made old-school turn-based RPGs so fun. I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 does so much stuff right that I'm still kind of finding out more stuff about it even after I've beaten it. We're going to blow past these next two real quick because I feel like they're very fun but not super deep. Human Fall Flat is basically a physics puzzle game where you're a little blob of person trying to walk along and drag objects and figure out how to progress through different levels. It's cool, but I'm not really super into it. I haven't finished it yet, but the levels I have done are really well designed. I kind of just wish that it had a little bit more to it art-wise, which is sort of how I feel about Revive Ultimate Edition as well. It's nice to see like a side-scrolling shooter done in a kind of cool arcade-ish style, but I just wanted a tiny bit more to it. However, I keep both of these still on my system because I feel like they're great when you just want to refresh yourself. If you've been playing hardcore RPGs and big giant games, it's kind of nice to just sit down and play something that's real simple. Unlike this freaking Skyrim. I will forever say that this is one of the most phenomenal and important games ever released. Skyrim is a masterpiece. I could play it all day, every day, and I say that as somebody who's beaten the entire game start to finish 4 times. I've beaten almost every single quest, I've become the master of every single faction, done all the DLC, and yet I can never ever get myself to stop playing it. It is so great that I will always have this installed. Just a couple days ago, actually, I was talking to somebody and they straight up said, I'm interested in Skyrim, but it seems too daunting. At this point, I feel like I've missed the boat. And I told that person straight to their face, get a Switch and get Skyrim on it. The ability to play this anywhere at any time makes the experience all the more awesome. This on a handheld is crazy good, and the fact that you can actually get the Legend of Zelda gear in it makes it just all the more fun. Now, the last 5 things I have installed here are all indie games, but all really fun because of how different they are. Neon Chrome is a twin-stick shooter that's really, in my opinion, all about playing with friends. Each level is randomly generated. The guards are put in different spots and there's different robots that are trying to hunt you down. But the cool part of this that I always enjoyed is the fact that the walls are actually destructible. So you can literally machine gun your way through walls and beat up people and use explosive barrels to try and take people down. It is really fun with friends, and I found myself constantly going back to this because since everything is randomized, I feel like to be good at it requires that you just keep going back. Mighty Gun Volt Burst, though, it's a little bit weirder. It's basically just 16-bit Mega Man to the core. Now, I like Mega Man, but seeing a game that just sticks so close to the source material is a bit odd. However, I find myself coming back to this pretty frequently just because I want to see all the different levels. I actually have not finished this yet, so I keep trying to just mess with it to see what new cool little things I'll discover. Sort of like Minecraft. Okay, Minecraft, obviously we all know about it, we've all played it, but I like it on Switch because, well, there's just always something new to build. It's cool to just kind of knock down some walls, build a roller coaster, and get into some trouble in this little digital landscape. Unlike Blaster Master. Now, this is not about giant open worlds or crafting, it is about shooting people in the face, and nothing else. This is, a lot of times, people consider this like the first truly great indie game for the Switch, and I have to agree, it is super good, and I like it because it is just kind of quirky retro awesomeness. It doesn't try and do anything too big and too daring, instead it just makes really old school fun and brings it to the modern day. And that really kind of sums up the exact same way I feel about Stardew Valley. Now, Stardew Valley is so talked about. Everybody says that this is one of the best games, and honestly, I think that this is really close to being the absolute best handheld game. This is so good to play a game that is, let's face it, Harvest Moon. You're watering crops, trying to get a wife, and just trying to slowly build up your little farm. I like this game though because, honestly, it is just so relaxing. It's nice to just, when you're stuck on a plane ride or something, just water some crops and pick some seeds and kind of just keep trying to establish yourself in this digital world. Stardew Valley is really quirky. Well guys, these have been all the games that are currently installed on my Nintendo Switch. As you can see, it's quite the collection. This is such a great system for playing on the go or at home, and I'm really glad that I have it, especially when I'm making big trips like I had to do this weekend. But I want to actually ask you, what is the favorite game that you have currently installed on your system? Tell me in the comments down below. And if you're asking why I don't have Zelda installed, it's just because I kept playing it so much I finally had to delete it, or else I'd never get anything done. Zelda Breath of the Wild is legit, I just don't happen to have it installed right this second. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh man, I am honestly so dead exhausted. But thank you. Thank you seriously for watching this. I'm going to edit this and take the hardest nap of my life. And wow. Oh, hey. I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.